Oh boy, I did not want to go out there and make this video. I didn't. You have to believe me when I say this idea pissed me off more than anything when I initially saw it trending on Twitter in the very limited sample from yesterday. But I did see Mike from Top Shelf Hockey make a video about this too. And I read the article and I was like, okay, you know, there are enough people talking about this where I could make a video about this, go over it, give my 2 cents as to why it's not a good idea, and then we can continue on from there. Not because this idea has any truth to it, but because it is being talked about. You know, that's kind of the thing, right? Follow the news, follow the talk of the town. That's kind of what you gotta do around these parts to self-sustain. But either way, today we are talking about my 2 favorite teams, the Vancouver Canucks and the Montreal Canadiens, and a trade idea, or a trade rumor, I guess you could say, that has linked these 2 together in some sort of a swap involving 2 forwards who have been not necessarily on the market, but who have been discussed in trade rumors over the past few weeks. We're talking today about Andrei Kuzmenko of the Vancouver Canucks, as well as Sean Monahan of the Montreal Canadiens. Now, I get it. If you've been a fan of this channel for the past few weeks, you would have seen a bunch of videos about Kuzmenko, a bunch of videos about Monahan. We never talked about them together, though, because they were always separate ideas. But this article published on NHLTradeRumor.com goes out there and links the 2. Now, this piece was written by Rob Ellis, published yesterday on December 29th, and just in case you wanted the scoop as to why this even got trending in the first place, I mean, NHL Trade Rumors on Twitter, they've got 10,000 followers. That's enough of a fan base where you'll see people following, liking, and retweeting what it is that they talk about, which is how I stumbled upon this idea in the first place. So I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go ahead and read this article yourself. As we had said, published by Rob Ellis from yesterday. The article opens up by saying this, though. In what could be one of the most significant trades of the season, the Canucks and Canadiens are rumored to being in discussions about a blockbuster deal. The proposed trade, which is generating considerable buzz in NHL circles, involves several key players and draft picks potentially reshaping the dynamics of both teams. Now, pause. This is kind of where you start to read into the doubt, because I'm not going to go out there and say that NHLTradeRumor.com is a bogus website. But I will say they go out there and publish articles about trade ideas that more or less are not really being talked about anywhere else. They normally start here and they normally end here. It's just this idea I saw was big enough that I felt it was okay to talk about it. But that's just kind of the territory we're dealing with here in regards to this website. Take a look at this. The Canucks are rumored to be offering Andrei Kuzmenko, Nils Hoglander, and a 2024 third to the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for Sean Monahan, Johnathan Kovacevic, and a 2025 second. Now, here's the thing. This trade idea is very specific, and it seems more so like a guy going out there and plugging things in on franchise mode, rather than just really acknowledging what these 2 teams could be looking for. Now, not even talking about the draft picks, just talking about the players involved, Andrei Kuzmenko and the Vancouver Canucks, okay, if you wanted to convince me that there would be some sort of a Montreal trade that involves Kuzi, okay. If the Vancouver Canucks are getting themselves a really good package, something that actually makes this team a contender, then the Andrei Kuzmenko trade idea isn't one to scoff away at. Especially when you consider that Kuzi is making $5.5 million, he hasn't been himself this season, he hasn't been producing. If you look at the numbers right now, Andrei Kuzmenko has, 19 points in 31 games, played, on pace for 47 points, which isn't bad, per se. It's just a pretty big decline from the top-line 70-point, near 40-goal guy that he was last year. So, for Andrei Kuzmenko, for him to get tossed around in a trade idea like this, it makes sense, more than anything, that the possibility of him getting traded is real. However, when you talk about Nils Hoglander also getting included there too, this is where things go kind of off the rails and they get crazy because, hey, Nils Hoglander has improved so much this season under Rick Tocchet's systems that if the Canucks were thinking about trading this guy, it would be a massive mistake. Hoglander this season is on pace for 36 points in 80 games, which would be a pretty good career high in terms of all the points and the numbers. His production is crisp this season. He is on pace to besting his career high in goals in a significantly smaller amount of games than what he had in his rookie season, wherein a lot of people would say was his best year. Hoglander has improved so much, and he's only 23 years old, that the idea of trading this guy away, especially at this point of the year, seems like absolute ludicrous bananas, just crazy talk. And it gets even weirder when you acknowledge the potential return coming back. Sean Monahan is not a bad player by any means. It's just, for what the Vancouver Canucks could be looking for, Monahan isn't really that. I mean, what is he? He's a center, two-way versatile guy who can play the wing, who can play the net front presence on the power play. Canucks don't need a net front presence on the power play. Even if they don't have Kuzmenko, they'll have Hronek filling in on that spot, and everything is fine. They don't necessarily need another center because Pia Sutar and Teddy Bluger have been doing very good things in those roles once they're given those opportunities, not to mention Miller and Pettersson. And if you wanted to say they'd be acquiring Monahan to play with Elias Pettersson because they want that left wing guy, I guess, I don't really see that as a fit either. I mean, Monahan, Mikheyev, and Pettersson, I feel like there's something so off about that line idea that it feels awkward enough to think about. Plus, if you get rid of Hoglander, you're getting rid of two forwards, getting one in return. You're going to have to promote one of these Lafferty or Suter guys, which jumbles up the roster even more. You have to call somebody else up. It doesn't look good on paper. Meanwhile, Johnathan Kovacevic coming over here, this makes no sense whatsoever because Kovacevic isn't really the kind of guy that I think really moves the needle for the Vancouver Canucks in any shape or form. Kovacevic is 26 years old, and he is not really the kind of player that is going to make this team a contender. He's not going to push the Vancouver Canucks over the edge. Sure, he's a right-handed guy. Sure, he's a big guy too, 6'5", but this is not necessarily the kind of player that I think is going to have such a significant impact on the Vancouver Canucks that they would be willing to sacrifice a forward spot, a full-on forward spot for one of Hoglander or Kuzmenko to get. And plus, the Canucks already have themselves a pretty big logjam of defenders available to them anyway, with the Noah Juulsens, the Mark Friedmans, the Carson Soucies when he comes back, Zadorov, Myers, Hughes, Hronek, and Ian Cole, that if they really wanted to make a trade for a D-man, you could debate that Kovacevic isn't good enough to justify making that kind of a move. Of course, I'm a fan of the Canadiens, so I see Kovacevic play. He's fine, but he's not a guy that is good enough to justify holding everybody else up, adding another name to the logjam of defense that the Vancouver Canucks seem to have. If they're going out there and making a trade, let's say Kuzmenko for Tanev, somebody that's actually like top 4 caliber and bona fide guaranteed to be making a huge difference, then okay, add another name to that logjam because at least the team would be improving. But Kovacevic, if you swap out Juulsen for Kovacevic, if you swap out, I guess it would have to only be Juulsen, right? You can't talk about Friedman because he's not playing anyway. If you go with a D-core that includes Hughes, Hronek, Soucy, Myers, Cole, Zadorov, that's already 6 men right there. And the extras, including Juulsen, Kovacevic, Friedman, they're all kind of interchangeable. I just don't see this trade as one that moves the needle for the Vancouver Canucks in the ways that would make sense to even be going out there and considering it. Like, especially when you think about where this trade idea is coming from, just some random article on NHLTradeRumor.com. Now, I'll go out there and say that I'm pretty sure most of the internet at this point, especially the ones that are chronically online, like me, cough cough, most people are probably familiar with the style and the way these websites run and operate. I'm not going to disrespect that too heavily. Like, I get it, you gotta make bank, you gotta go out there, get your ad views, because for those who make a living by publishing content online, like me, I'm going out there and making a video talking about this because I thought it was ridiculous, but I also do acknowledge that I do have Canadiens and Canucks fans on this channel, so seeing some sort of a trade idea linking the two together would garner some attention. But at the end of the day, I don't think this idea is really worth thinking about. Not even to mention the draft picks. Like, we didn't even highlight those at all. Just the player-to-player kind of conversation there just doesn't really make any sense for me. And for the Montreal Canadiens, I mean, What, do you want another Mike Hoffman situation? Do you want to get a player in Andrei Kuzmenko who has not been confident at all, and add another younger player to this slew of younger players on the wings in Nils Hoglander? Like, I just don't think that's too appropriate for what the Canadiens are doing. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below if you're a Canucks or Habs fan. What are your thoughts on this entire trade idea? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.